point to me when I have to go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast on a kind of low Friday. You know, Fridays are supposed to be happy and bunnies and rainbows. And some of us have a 3-day weekend, and then the Nuggets decide I do too. And then the Nuggets decide to send us in with a dud. But if we're being honest, me personally, I kind of expected that. So we'll get right to it today. Obviously, Game 1 reaction. You know, the Nuggets are just going up against a really good team, people. This is the team I chose to go to the finals. And, you know, I think for the Nuggets, I saw someone tweet when they saw Jamal Murray's reaction to Scott Van Pelt saying the game was on Thursday, like, we play on Thursday? We only get one day off? They're like, that's when I knew this was going to be a blowout. And to be honest, I kind of expected this too. The Clippers have had, I think, 8 days rest now.
Yeah. They've played one game in 8 days.
Right. And the Nuggets, on the other hand, are coming off of a Game 7 victory in which they completely just went all out. And in a series that was tough and in a battle.
They had to come back from 1-3. So it's not
Exactly.
like it wasn't just Game 7. It was games 5 or even 4, 5, 6, 7, where you're putting everything out there to just stay alive.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I mean, now you get into a series with arguably 1B. You know, if you want to call Kawhi the best player in the world, there's an argument to be made for that. But I mean, arguably the best player in the world. You got a top 20 player with him who decides to play decent in spots against the Nuggets. And then that team, like, it's funny because when you think about the Nuggets, what do people always constantly say? Oh, they're so deep. The Nuggets are deep with a bunch of guys who have great potential.
I hate when people say that though, because
Right.
because it doesn't matter in the playoffs, but two, they're not really that deep.
Right.
Like if you really think, but they're not that deep.
They're regular season deep. Like these guys have all like great potential and they're talented for sure. But the Clippers have
the Clippers
really
are deep.
They're like actually deep with like legitimate like established veterans in this league who are so versatile, can all D up and can all score. And it's crazy because last night I was thinking about this. Is it weird that I fear the Clippers' second unit, their bench, more than I do the starting unit? Because the Nuggets kept it close in the first quarter, and then once the benches came in, that's where the game just kind of exploded open. And, you know, the Clippers go up 7. Now, obviously, they kept Kawhi in, and they're always going to keep one of those two guys in, PG or Kawhi. But once the Nuggets, once they sit Jokic, or once they sit Jamal, or both, then it's just like, you know, MPJ is just he's struggling right now.
Yeah.
And this is when you really need a Will Barton, someone who can create his own shot.
I was thinking that last night.
Outside of that, I mean,
yeah,
Gary's great on defense, but man, it's rough. You know, Monte, it seems like it's hit and miss at times. Can't expect anything from Mason Plumlee on the offensive end. And Paul Millsap, I mean, my God, it's a nightmare at times watching him play. And so, I mean, I think last night was to be expected.
Yeah.
Now, again, I think you have to come into this series with realistic expectations. What were your expectations? If you thought the Nuggets could, which some people did, could beat this team, which, you know, it kind of reminds me of the Avengers in Endgame when Iron Man looks at Doctor Strange and he's like, is this the one scenario out of the 50 billion simulations where we win? And he gives him, this is the one. Yeah, sure, there's probably a one where the Nuggets could do it. But in all the other 49 billion, 999 million, all those simulations, it's the Clippers. I think it's Clippers in 5. They just have so much for the Nuggets on offense. Defensively, they made a stand right away. They made a statement. They said Kawhi's going to guard Jamal. He's not going to do anything this series. And Jamal didn't. I mean, Jamal had one of those games where, you know, it's 5 of 15, 12 points, 2 of 8 from the 3-point line. Part of it, sure, he's exhausted. Part of it, yes, he's got Kawhi on him. But also, you can't ignore that part of this is Jamal's history. And this is a matchup that's favorable to Nikola Jokic. I thought he had a solid first quarter, which I think he had 8 or 9 points. And then he finishes with 15. So everybody was a minus last night for the Nuggets except for Keita Beats, D-Up, and Bol Bol. So that should tell you how the night went. Um, and I saw a quote from Paul Millsap saying, "We fell into their trap. We tried to win ISO ball against the best ISO ball team in the league, and the Nuggets don't have those type of players. At least not enough of them." So it was just a collection of just bad timing for the Nuggets, bad execution, and hopefully in Game 2 we get a bounce back.
Yeah, I think going into this series, obviously, I did not think Denver was gonna win, at least this game, because the Clippers won game in 8 days. Like before the playoffs started, and in our podcast when we made our predictions for the series, I did pick Denver in 7. I also didn't expect Denver to take 7 games to beat Utah.
Right.
And have to fight back from being down 1-3 and, play at that level for 4 straight games. So, because of that, there's no way Denver can win this series. I think they can maybe get 2. I think the Clippers win in 6. I think the Nuggets may surprise you in a couple of games. I think they're going to get some of those weird just shooting nights that they'll usually get. So I think they get 2 of those.
Well, it looked like they were going to have that last night. I mean, they were shooting 59% from the field. Their 3 was dropping in the first quarter. And then
I think they also got tired too. You could tell a lot of their shots were short, especially Jamal. The one player I am extremely just frustrated with last night is Nikola Jokic, because I get it, he played really well in Game 7, but this is his series. He has to. You cannot. Kawhi Leonard went 12 of 16 with 29 points and got whatever he wanted. In that first quarter, there was moments, I wouldn't say the whole first quarter, but there was moments where Nikola Jokic could get whatever he wants against that team. And he does not look to do that. He does not look to score. He does not look to be aggressive. He does not do... He's holding the ball up at the three-point line, up in the air, with one hand looking around at his teammates. And that was 90% of the possessions last night. That cannot happen. The Clippers do not have an answer for him. They don't. It's that simple. They do not have an answer. He let Zubac, however the hell you say his name, to bully him. Because early on in that game, Jokic got a couple easy buckets, and he was maybe, 3 of 6, 3 of 5, something like that, with like 10 points. He had 11 points at the half. All the Clippers did, because they know they can't guard him. Zubac can't guard him. Morris can't guard him. He's too small. Patterson can't guard him. Green can't guard him. Harrell can't guard him because he's too small. But guess what they can do? They can push him. They can bully him. And that's exactly what they did. And he gave in. He just folded. When the second they got physical with him, he folded. And that cannot happen. They weren't going to win last night. And then that's fine. But how you play, that matters. Look, I'm going to give a pass to Jamal. And that's just me. I get it. The inconsistency with Jamal has been a thing. But what he did in games 4, 5, and 6, you could tell, even after game 7, in that response to Van Pelt, like, he's exhausted. He literally dragged that team, dragged Jokic on his back and the rest of that team to game 7.
Dragged Jokic. Jokic still averaged 26 in that series. 26 and 7.
He averaged 20. He averaged that, but look at what he did in game 4. There was never a moment in games in those games where you're like, okay, Jokic is taking over, other than in game 7. Now he would hit a couple big shots, but there was never that we haven't had and I said this in the last podcast, we haven't had a Jokic game. Look at last year against
game 7 was.
other yes, but other than that, and even then, there's look at last year, look at last season against the Spurs and against the Blazers. He averaged nearly 30, 15, and like 7.
Mm-hmm.
Though we're not getting those numbers. Yeah, we're getting 26, 10, and or not even 10. Is he even averaging 10 rebounds?
I'll look because I did this the other night. I went through, but I know he averaged 26. I know it was, I think, 11 rebounds and I think 5 assists in that series. But you have to look at the context.
But there's
right?
there's context to it. It's
He played a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and they were doubling him on the
okay.
first dribble.
I understand that, but you cannot have against the Clippers who don't have that guy,
Right.
who are extremely undersized, and Zubac is not a very good defender. Don't give me
No.
that crap. So
Well, I'll say this though. To your point.
what are you doing? You went 6 of 14 with 15 points, and
Right, no.
you're not exhausting yourself in that last series like Jamal was. I didn't
Right.
see that on the court. I even take Game 7 out because he was the only one in that game for both teams to show up in Game 7, and credit to him to do that. But 1 through 6, he did not play bully ball Jokic. He did not play confident Jokic. He did not play aggressive Jokic. It was those 26 and 11 and 5 numbers, to me, were just empty stats. That was
I'm not gonna
that
say
was
that. That's okay. That's
no,
extreme.
because it wasn't. He's not doing what he did last year in the playoffs. He hit another level last year in the playoffs.
Well,
It was an extra level. He's
They
not.
don't-
I don't.
None of
I
those
don't.
teams
I
have
haven't.
anybody that can guard him.
Okay,
The-
but
the
then what?
Utah
What about
Jazz
last
did.
night?
Well, I'm getting to that.
And
So
and there
last
were
night-
but there were moments against the Jazz where he was just. He would do the same thing. He holds the ball up at the 3-point line and looks around. He doesn't look to initiate anything. It takes Jamal to just initiate something and get aggressive.
But that's
Jokic
part of their
isn't in-
offense, though. When they get it to him at the top of the key, he's waiting for either a cutter or it's a side screen for someone to come get the ball.
Sure,
That's what
but
he's
you
waiting
cannot
for.
wait 5 to 10 seconds for that. If it's not coming, you gotta go.
Sure, no, I'll give you that. Sometimes he does wait too long on that. But I mean, at the top of the key, your center's at the top of the key. What do you want him to do there? I mean, there's not a lot he can do to create his shot. I mean, he's too slow. He doesn't have that skill set to do it. I will say,
Get
now,
in the post and make him double.
Well, I mean, how's he going to get to the? I mean, that is someone going to screen for him?
I'm
and-
telling you, no. Zubac can start posting up from
Right.
the top of the key. Zubac can't stick with him. He can bully him right down.
So you want him to back him down from the 3-point line? all
No,
the way
what
down?
I'm saying though is there was a couple times where he would take a dribble to the right, start to post up, spin back to the right, and that gets you down to about the free throw line.
I get what you
All
mean.
he has to do is do that. They're gonna double because the Clippers Zubac can't stick with him.
Right.
So they're gonna double. Boom, get it out. But by then, there's 2 seconds on the damn clock.
Right.
So if no one's initiating the offense right away, you got to go with 20. You got to go with 18 seconds to do that. Because then if they double, you pass out and you swing the ball. Now you're gonna have to hit shots,
Well, I'll say
and
this.
it's gonna come to hitting shots at that point.
I'll-
But
I'll say this.
he's got to be more aggressive.
I'll respond to everything you said because you have a lot there. As far as him being aggressive, yes, I agree. He has to look to score. But I think and I had this conversation yesterday with a coworker. I think with Nikola Jokic, once you get to the point where I don't want to say accept what he is as a player. Yes, he has the talent to drop 30 on your head any given night. That's a fact. But his best skill set, because this is the same argument we have with LeBron, there's times where he's not aggressive as a scorer because his best skill set is to facilitate. And when he's your best player, you feel like he should be the guy that sets the tone. I agree with you. Last night, 15 points, 3 rebounds. He's got to do better than that. But there were points, okay, and I know you can agree with me on this because I can think of at least 3 situations where Jokic is on the block and the entry pass is horrific and it gets stolen. It's a bad pass. It's above him. So it's not like he's not getting down there. The Nuggets sometimes don't get him the ball when he needs the ball, when there's a mismatch or when he has somebody in position, Jamal. I mean, Jamal's at the top of the key and he's underhanding that pass.
Yeah,
Get to
there was
the
a
lane,
lazy pass. Yeah.
get him the ball. There was twice where Paul Millsap gave him a crappy pass.
Paul Millsap, man,
Right, he's tough to watch. But I'll say this:
I don't
it's
get why he's playing. I
it's
don't.
two sides to the story with Nikola Jokic. Yes, does he need to take more on himself? For sure, 100%. I'm not gonna sit here and say he doesn't. But also he needs some help from his teammates. And when he's looking to initiate the offense, when he's sitting there, he's waiting for someone to cut. But I do agree with you. Yes, at a certain point, you can't take 7 to
He
10
literally
seconds.
stood out there for about 10
Right.
seconds that one moment. I'm like, what the hell is going
Right.
on?
But that's also on his teammates because they have to move. There was a situation last night where Nikola had it at the elbow, I believe, and there was nobody on Torrey Craig in the left corner. And Jokic literally looked at him for 2-3 seconds, and some people were joking on Twitter that he saw Craig on the 3-point line, and he was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna take it myself." I disagree. I think he was waiting for Torrey to cut because that's an easy layup, and Torrey didn't do it, so Jokic was like, "Fine, I'll get the basket myself." We've seen this last series specifically multiple times where he's looking at Michael Porter and he wants him to cut, and Michael is not cutting. So I think with Jokic, there's times where he's wanting to get his teammates involved. Why? Because that's his best skill set. Yes, he does need to be more aggressive. It seems like it almost just takes his back and this team's back to be completely against the wall for him to drop 30, 14 and hit the game winner. Now, it doesn't need to, it shouldn't have to get to that point. With Jokic, it's a two-sided story. I get everything you're saying, but what are the LA Clippers doing? Because Zubats is not a good defender, because Harrell's undersized, because Morris is undersized, they're still doubling in certain situations on the catch or on the first dribble in the post. They're not doubling him out there. There's no point to do that. But when he's putting the ball on the ground, they're coming and they're showing the double. So he has to get rid of it, which he does. And his teammates, I mean, who knocked down an open shot last night? Other than the first quarter, they went 9 of 36 from 3 and 35 of 83, which is 42% from the field. So at a certain point, somebody's got to help him out. And, I don't want to pick on Jamal, but that's where he comes in. And I get he's exhausted, but he had some open looks last night that he usually makes, that he made last series, that he didn't make last night. And I think the Clippers made a statement. They're not going to double Jamal. You want to know why? Because they have defenders to switch off on Jamal. Paul George, Patrick Beverly, Kawhi. So you can set a screen for Jamal, sure. You get Kawhi off of him. Oh, great. Now it's Paul George. Oh, great. Now it's Patrick Beverly. So Jamal's going to have to find a way to initiate and get his own offense going. But Nicola's also going to have to realize that and figure out, okay, I need to be more aggressive. So it's a two-sided story. Jokic didn't show up last night in terms of how you needed him to show up. But I'll play devil's advocate. Say if he did get 27, 8, and 5. Bless you. Is there anybody, bless your face again. Is there anybody else on the Nuggets that was going to come through and hit a shot for him? No. So, yes, your Jokic criticisms are completely valid. But you know what? This was my fear with Jamal. And this is why I was hesitant to crown him like a lot of the local media, the national media. Jamal's not a superstar. Neither is Jokic. You know how I feel about it. There's the superstars, the Kawhis, the KDs, the LeBron. Then there's a line. Then it's your perennial all-stars or your stars. Jokic, Damian Lillard, Harden, those guys. Those guys, they can drag your team to the playoffs, but they're not the guys that can will your team to a finals, which those three guys that I just mentioned, previously, they can do. So this is where I need to see it with Jamal. He played excellent last series in 4 games. I mean, he had 4 games that were just mind-blowing. But I need to see it for a full season. I need to see it in a playoffs, and then I'll be ready. And he doesn't have to go out and average 40 or 50. That's inconceivable, honestly. Give me 25 a night. Give me 23 a night. 23 and 5. I'm sick of seeing the 36, 45, 50, 12, 14. I don't want to see that because that it's not consistent. So the Nuggets have issues, man. I mean, this is a really good basketball team that they're facing, and that's why I think it goes 5. It may go 4. It may be a tough 4, but I just don't see how the Nuggets can, 1, score consistently, and 2, I mean, who's stopping Kawhi? There were moments in that game. Jeremy Grant is there defensively. Torrey Craig is there. Gary Harris is there, and his mid range is. I mean, it's a blast from the past. I mean, it's Kobe Bryant.
Well, he got to his spots, and
Yeah.
so you got to prevent him from getting to
How
his
do you do
spots.
that? Because
Well,
almost
I
nobody
think
in the league can do that.
I think you just got to be more physical with him too. I think Torrey. I think there's a few guys that need to have good series, who not only need to have a good series, who can have a good series against the Clippers because of matchups. One that's not is Jamal Murray, and it's the matchup. They can take Jamal out with Kawhi or Paul George. Even I think Beverly struggled a little bit with Jamal. I think when Beverly was on Jamal, there were moments where Jamal could take him. I just don't think Beverly's big enough. I think he can get aggressive with them, but then he got called for fouls. So I don't think that's a necessarily good matchup for the Clippers. But when you put Kawhi on him, specifically Kawhi, because even Paul George, Jamal blew by Paul George a couple times. Because Jamal did have 6 assists, and a lot of that was because he was able to blow by Beverly and get a pass out, or blow by Paul George and get a pass out. It's the Kawhi matchup. If they put Kawhi on Jamal, Jamal really can't do much. He gets smothered. So that's but again, if Jamal's on the other two, there's moments where he can kind of get a couple easy baskets. But the second he got 1 or 2 baskets in a row last night, Kawhi was right on him. So give credit to the Clippers and give credit to Kawhi on stopping Jamal, because that was their focus. They let Jokic say, they literally, basically what I saw was, we're going to see what Jokic does. If he starts to play bully ball, if he starts to be aggressive, we'll double. But they didn't double
They didn't give him a chance.
They didn't, but they didn't double him every time. What they did was
They showed. I mean, they didn't double him every time,
but
showed it.
they played on him aggressively before he got the ball, is what they did, right? They denied ball with him. He needs to go get the ball. He needs to be a little bit more aggressive in other moments. But he wasn't. But this is their game plan. If he does, we'll show the double. The double cannot come off of Jamal, and we'll stick Kawhi on Jamal. If Jeremy Grant hits shots, if Gary Harris hits shots, if Paul Millsap hits shots, whoever, fine. But that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna double Jokic when he's being aggressive, and they're gonna stick Kawhi on Jamal. That's the game plan. And for the Nuggets, you need to find ways to get those two guys open. You need to find other ways to get them going, because and they didn't really run their 2-man game. So I'm interested to kind of see if when they do that, how that works. If that works well against the Clippers, putting Zubac in the pick and roll and attacking him, they didn't do a lot of that either. So to me, it's all on the game plan. I feel like Malone was like, "Congrats on winning Game 7, guys. I know you're tired. Just go out there and play." I think that was the game plan for them. So I'm very curious to see what Malone changes with those two specifically, because I think you can trust Grant to hit shots from the outside. He was 4 of 8, 3 of 6 from 3 last night. You need to figure out what you want to do with Paul Millsap. I don't know if you want to leave Paul Millsap in, or if you do want to start Torrey Craig and put him on Kawhi, because I think that's your better matchup with Torrey. He won't stop Kawhi. He might not be able to slow him down, but he will at least make it tough. Because you saw a lot of those defensive possessions, he was right there with Kawhi.
Well,
right? Kawhi
Jeremy did a good job.
And Jeremy did too. But what I'm
put Torrey Craig in, because then listen, Paul Millsap hasn't been killing it offensively, to say the least. But
he's not doing anything he's not doing anything defensively either. What I'm saying is, when you do that switch, you at least have two guys in Craig and Grant who can guard and Gary, who can at least make it tough for PG and Kawhi. You can at least make it tough for them. The second Paul Millsap was guarding them, they blew right by him. It wasn't even like he was there. They just went.
Yeah.
So Paul Millsap
though,
cannot start.
My only fear with starting Torrey Craig over Paul Millsap, though, is then you go into a really defensive heavy lineup, and then that puts a lot of pressure. Well, I mean, there's already a lot of pressure, but
Well, it's not like Paul Millsap's doing anything offensively.
No, I know, but he has more ability to score than,
does he?
Than Torrey Craig does. Oh, yes, he does. He's still a better offensive player. He's not playing like it, but he's still a better.
That's the thing. He's not playing like it.
Right.
And he's not going to play like it at this point. We're 8 games in.
But I think that's going to put even more pressure than that already exists on Nikola and Jamal to score every time down. Here's what this is going to come down to. And this is why I don't think the Nuggets can win this series and why I didn't think they could win this series. They have to work so hard for every basket. The Clippers, it's easy. I mean I'm not going to say easy, but it's easier. They don't feel resistance. And then honestly, if Marcus Morris, I think that's the one that's on their team, if he's gonna shoot like that every night, then you can really just book it. The Nuggets don't have a chance, because I mean at that point there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, Marcus Morris.
Did great on Lou Williams. He only had 10 points. You know, Montrezl Harrell was somewhat of an impact. Man, I would love to have that guy. I'm telling you what, I would love to have him.
JaMychal Green came in too and hit a 3. Like there were some of those shooting moments where like it was like, okay, this is, especially with Kawhi. I mean, I don't think the Nuggets played bad defensively. I just think that offensively they had nothing. Whether it was they didn't have legs, right? Whether it was they just didn't have enough legs, whether it was they just had one of those shooting nights. I don't know, because to me, they started off the game well. So usually when they start off the game shooting well, they shoot the ball well throughout the whole game. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think it was just they were tired. And now guys got to shoot the ball better, and guys got to play the ball better. I think Monte needs to play. He played okay. He was 5 for 11 with 12 points. But he had 12 points on 11 shots. He was 0 for 3 from 3. He missed a lot of all of Monte's shots were wide open. Mm-hmm. And he missed a lot. So, Plumlee probably shouldn't play in the series. Paul Millsap should be getting a whole lot less minutes, maybe down to like 14 or 15. And Porter should be getting less minutes at this point. I think you play Craig more. I think you play Monte more. I think you play PJ Dozier more. I think that's a nice matchup for PJ Dozier. And you know what? Instead of Michael Porter, let's see what Bol Bol can do. I think Bol Bol can cause a lot. Now they're gonna attack him defensively, right? But I think offensively he can come in and hit shots. And that's what you need against this team. You need to be able to hit shots, and off the bench, if he gets 10 minutes. Because Porter got 23 minutes. I think if you give Dozier that 23 minutes instead, I think if you give Craig a little bit more than 22, I think if you give Monte maybe 22, 23, and if he can shoot the ball better, and then give Bol like 10, and have him come in and just hit some shots. Yeah. Because at this point, that's what you need. I love MPJ. It's just a little too big of a moment for him right now. And
I don't know what it is. Ever since that 28-point game, maybe it's the intensity, but I mean, last night he had like a string of possessions where it was like,
I think he's just in his head.
Offensive fouls. I was just like, oof. Man,
I think he's just in his head. Yeah, I think it's just in his head. I think honestly, a game where he sits might do a lot for him.
I don't like his body language on the bench either. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, he just kind of.
Whenever you see him on the bench, he's always just kind of. And, I mean, that might be nitpicking because, I mean, if you look at all guys on the bench, I mean, they're always...
No, but then you see it on the court.
Sitting up cheering. But every time it seems like you see him on the bench in the background, he's pouting, it looks like. And I'm not a fan of that. Now, maybe that's just him just being frustrated with himself, which I can, totally get. It's a weird situation. And this is why I think this team can only go so far in the playoffs, because they're just not built to be a championship team. They're a playoff team for sure. But not a lot of teams are championship teams. And I was talking about this yesterday with a coworker. How many championship teams have you seen in any sport um, that have won just with good guys, just nice guys? The Nuggets have a team full of just nice guys. You need one, two, three if you can, just dogs, guys who have screws loose. And what makes it even better is if those guys are versatile. Like Pat Beverly. Pat Beverly hit 2 threes last night. That's when we should have really known that this game was over. I was like, oh my God. Okay, come on now. The Jay Crowders, Jimmy Butler, Montrezl Harrell. I mean, those guys are just tone setters. They have attitude. They're energy starters. You know, when you're down 10, all it takes is a block or an and one from one of those guys, and you feel like you have life again. I just don't have those guys. I don't think that they're soft, but I don't think that they're just good guys. They're just nice. There's nobody on this team that's gonna, start some energy unless it's Jamal hitting a long shot. Do they have a guy that's gonna ferociously dunk on somebody? I mean, no. I mean, Jeremy Grant can do some high flying stuff.
Jamal and Jeremy Grant are really the only two guys that can do that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but even then, it's just like they don't.
But that's not consistent.
So,
like, yeah.
There's a ceiling on this team, and while they're a good team, they're a playoff team. Jokic can drag them there. Jamal has to take them over the hump, but even then, can they beat the Clippers? Can they beat the Lakers? Can they, if it came to it, can they beat the Heat? I think the Heat are going to make the finals, man. I was thinking about this last night. I really think the Miami Heat are going to go to the NBA finals.
Ooh, Boston. Because Kemba
Yes.
Kemba Walker, man,
Yes.
that changes that team so much.
I think it's Boston and Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals, but Miami is just so vicious defensively. I mean, they can take you out of whatever, and they have the guy, Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, Bam Adebayo is so versatile defensively. They can switch everything with him. And the scoring they're getting off the bench from, I think it's Hero that comes off the bench for them, and Duncan Robinson starts. I really want to see a Clippers Heat finals, just because there's like 4 or 5 dogs on each team. There would be so many fights in that series. I would just love to see it. So many pushing and shoving and just jawing at each other. I would love to see that. But getting back to the point, I mean, the Nuggets just don't. They're good, man. They're a playoff team, but they don't have the guy. They have a star and a guy who has a potential to be a star, but they don't have the guy. And not many teams win a championship without a top 2 or 3 player. I mean, look at the last NBA Finals. The last string of NBA Finals. Who's been on those teams to lead them? It's been Kawhi, it's been Kevin Durant, it's been LeBron James. Oh, shocker. It's the 3 best players in the world that are, in my opinion, the superstars that can carry you by themselves to a finals. Everybody else, if you don't have one of those guys, you need like 3 legitimate stars on your team. And the Nuggets don't have that. Nobody else really has that. It's Giannis and, Chris Middleton, who's a 2-time All-Star somehow. Because I swear to you, Chris Middleton, when it comes to the playoffs, he just disappears. I don't get it. Every time I watch that guy play, he misses every shot. It baffles my mind how he just lets his team down. And that's just really the situation with all of the NBA teams. LeBron has AD. Kevin Durant obviously not in the playoffs, but there's a ceiling on this Nuggets team right now. And when I look at this series, you think they can get 2. Maybe best case scenario, they get 1 on an off shooting night from the Clippers. But other than that, I just don't. They can't come back next season with the same team. It just can't happen. It just cannot happen. If they want to get to the Western Conference Finals, let alone a finals, you cannot come back with this same team next year. There has to be some, I don't want to say major changes, but some real change around the Nuggets. You have to figure out who you want to build around. Do you believe in Jamal enough to shift the focus to build around him? Do you still want to build around Jokic? Because if you build around Jokic, you have to build around him right. He needs shooters and he needs defensive guys. and because he's not going to play defense.
You need to build it like around what teams do to build
LeBron.
around LeBron.
That's what you need to do. And Jokic, listen, he has to be better defensively. And I get the knock on him. And I think that's also too, people have to accept with Jokic. He's not going to be an all-star defender. He's not going to make any first team all NBA defense, second team, third team. He's not going to do that. But can he give more effort? Yeah. When Patrick Beverly is coming at him down the lane and he jumps out of the way, oh, what is that? What are we doing? You just contest the shot. You know, if you don't even have to jump. If you stand straight up with your arms up, Patrick Beverly is maybe 6 feet. I mean, you're most likely blocking his shot. So he's got to be better just effort-wise. So does Jamal, though. I mean, there's times where these guys are never going to be great defenders, but if they just give effort like they did in the regular season, you see flashes where they can be a solid defensive team. It can't just be all on Gary and Paul and Jeremy and Torrey to do all this stuff. So there has to be real change from this team. And if it's going to be around Jokic still, that's why I threw out Jay Crowder, Montrezl Harrell. It's got to be versatile defensive guys who can score the basketball, because otherwise we're just going to keep running into the same situation with this team. They're going to skirt out of the first round, and then they're going to get bounced in the second round. That's their ceiling. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of those guys, though, in free agency this year. It's just a matter of getting them. So I think that this is one of those free agencies where there's not a lot of stars, but there's a lot of those guys. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when I look at this team right now, if they're going to beat the Clippers, they need to beat them with shooting and a whole lot of just finesse to where the Clippers cannot keep up. That's how you
hope Kawhi Leonard somehow sits out.
Well, you just got to hope that Kawhi Leonard doesn't go 12 of 16. I mean, that was stupid. He was hitting a lot of tough shots. I mean, if 2 or 3 of those shots rim out instead, then maybe the Nuggets kind of stick a little bit closer, right? What I'm thinking is, in this series, I know Malone won't do it, but in my mind, I feel like you just need to go all offense. And you need to try and kill him with shooting. I think you don't need to put Bobo at center. I think you can put him... I don't know who he's going to guard, but you can put him at like the 3 or the 4. You can maybe leave Porter in there and just try to... You remember early in the seeding games, when Jamal was specifically out and it was Porter with Jokic, the first 2 to 3 plays of the game usually would be an easy bucket to Porter, right, in the paint. They need to find a way the second Porter comes in to draw up a play for him, and just get his confidence going. If they're gonna beat the Clippers, they have to hit a lot of shots and get the Clippers to scramble. If you hit shots, I mean, look at how Dallas beat them. It's the same exact thing, right? Once you're starting to hit shots, that's when Jokic can kind of take over games and get going in the post, because then they're too afraid to double. And if they do double and you're hitting shots, boom, there you go. Paul Millsap cannot play more than 20, or he can't play more than 15. He can't, because he's not one of those guys. Jeremy Grant obviously is one of those guys he needs to play. I think you do need Gary and Torrey to play to at least somewhat slow Kawhi down. And Paul George, I think they did a good job on Paul George. Even though he did have 19 points, he was 6 of 13, 2 of 7. He just got to the free throw line he had 5 points from the free throw line. So Paul George played well, but he didn't shoot the ball great. So you'll take that. Obviously Morris hitting 7 of 10 from the field and 4 of 5 from 3. I mean, if that happens, you can't really do anything about it. But that's how you beat the Clippers. You just have to shoot the ball lights out. I think the Nuggets are usually good for 1 or 2 of those in a series, and that's why I'm saying they'll probably get 5. They'll probably lose in 5 or 6. But that's how you just need you don't. Jamal's not gonna go off for 50. He's just not in this series because they can slow him down.
Real defenders.
Right. Jokic, if you're gonna rely on one guy to carry you, it has to be Jokic. But again, they're gonna double him. So then these other guys like Grant, like Craig, like Harris, if you want to throw Bobo out there, Porter, they have to hit those threes. And if they don't, you're gonna lose.
Well, what was the issue last year, and what's been the issue for years? The Nuggets don't have shot makers. They don't have guys that can make you pay when they double Jokic.
A couple of those guys are sitting on the bench,
or when they play Jamal. Well, are they though? I mean, how many legitimate guys on this team can you say? Oh, and they're missing one. So I'll say Will Barton, Jeremy Grant. I think has earned his right. MPJ, but he's struggling.
I
Troy Daniels.
I think Bol is one of those guys.
Okay.
Because every time he plays, I mean he fills it up.
But
He
out
goes
of the guys that are getting minutes. How many shot makers are?
Well, that's what
on?
I'm saying. Malone's got to
don't have
change. Malone's got to change this thing up. Bol needs to play. One, he has a good matchup against the Clippers, because no one can guard Bol on the Clippers. Now you can put maybe Kawhi or Paul George on him to get physical, but Bol's 7'2". He can just shoot right over him. If you put Bol out, he's gonna struggle defensively. I get it. You're gonna have to figure something out defensively. But you know what? He can help you defensively too. He can get blocked shots.
Well, what about this? Okay,
He needs to play.
Scenario. This is an interesting scenario. I don't think it happens because it's Malone. But we've seen stranger things. What if you put Bol in, right? Then you sit in a zone.
Yeah.
You force the Clippers to shoot. If they make it, they make it. But if they want to drive, you funnel them in, and there's 12 Bol.
I love that. But the thing is, and this is where we get back to Malone. He just doesn't. He's so damn stubborn, and it's all about defense, and it's not like that with this team. And I always go back to what Chuck said: if you can't coach offense, you're not going to be a good head coach. This is the series, Malone. You've got to be able to figure it out offensively with these guys. You can't just hope and pray they hit shots. You need to change something up. Bol gives you that. Troy Daniels can give you that. Why are you playing Plumlee? Why are you playing Millsap? Why aren't you playing PJ Dozier?
I mean, they still got to make stops defensively.
You got it. No, I can't stand. Fine, get into a track meet with this team. Seriously.
I mean, still, you have to at some point make a stop, though.
Okay, and when it comes down to it, you can put those guys in because you have those pieces. But you have pieces to make it a track meet. Look how Dallas beat them.
Well, they have a top 5 player.
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is other guys like Hardaway, Burks, Kleber, those guys were hitting shots. Why? They upped the pace. They were getting open shots against the Clippers. The Clippers aren't a great transition defensive team. They have a lot of great one-on-one defenders. Get running against this team because you're going to be able to score against them. Will you be able to defend them when they get running too? At least you have a better shot. That's all I'm saying. At least you have a better. Try it for a game.
Well,
see what happens.
If you go the track meet style like Dallas did, all right, here's what you get: 118 from the Clippers, 114, 130, 135, or excuse me, 133, 154, 111. They can play that style.
Well, I understand they can play that style. What I'm saying though is the style of playing a slow Jokic ball at this point is exactly how the Clippers play. Is exactly what you want from the. If you're the Clippers, what do you want? You want half-court offense. You want Kawhi to do what he did. You want him to drive, kick out, Beverly hitting threes, Morris hitting threes, Paul George getting one-on-ones when you need. They are the example of a half-court offense. If you get them running, then it's when you get them running, you are daring them to hit threes, right? Well, I don't think, now if he does it, great, but I don't think Morris is gonna get 5 threes in a game. I don't think Beverly's gonna hit 3 or 4. I don't think that's gonna happen every game. If it does, good for you. Right. But if you're running and if you're getting that pace up, it allows you to score a little bit easier. And you can have guys like Torrey Craig in the game while you're doing that. Because Torrey Craig's a good transition, other than the miss layup at the end of Game 7. But he's a good transition type of player too. And he can get down the court. You can drive, kick out. He can hit a corner 3. So it's okay to have him in there. And then transition defense, he's a good transition defensive player. So you can still have both of that. You need to up the pace. The one guy, the most important guy that doesn't fit that is Jokic. He can start the break with his long passes, right? He can get the rebound and go. But that's what they're going to have to do. If they want any chance in this series, they got to up the pace. Troy Daniels or Bol Bol, specifically Bol Bol, needs to play. I'm not saying he needs to play 30 minutes. I'm saying give him 10-minute stretches. If he can give you 2 or 3 threes in that 10 minutes, fantastic. 2 or 3 threes, 1 or 2 blocks, affect some shots, bother some guys, boom. He may get bullied a little bit defensively, even offensively, but in a 10-minute stretch, I will take 2 to 3 threes, 1 or 2 blocks, get them the hell out. But that's what you need against this team. You need to up that pace. What have we seen with Bol Bol in transition? Nothing but great things. We've seen bounce passes. We've seen over-the-top baseball passes. We've seen ignoring Jokic, dribbling up and hitting a 3 from 6 feet behind the three-point line. We've seen that. That's his game. That works. Why do we have to play this slow, methodical offense with Jokic and get into these half-court offenses and have to, play great half-court defense? That's the Malone style. Well, that style is not going to work against the Clippers. You know why? Because that's their style too. And guess what? They have better players. So they're going to crush you every time. You have to get them uncomfortable. You have to put them in positions where they're not used to doing that. Dallas did it. But Dallas didn't have... When Dallas had Porzingis, and if Porzingis played every game, I think that's a different series. I think it goes 7. And I think at the end of the day, Kawhi probably would have took him home. But Porzingis was a bad matchup for them in that transition offense. Because then they had wide open Tim Hardaway. You were so spread out. The Clippers were so spread out defensively. They couldn't double Porzingis. Boom, in the post, easy bucket, Jokic. That fast-paced game, that works against the Clippers. They can do it offensively, but it works against them defensively. And what's the thing about the Clippers? What's their identity? Defense. Toughness, right? Well, guess where that's great at? Half court. You put them in transition, they can't do that as much.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is try it. Try it, because what do you have to lose? The Clippers are expected to get to the NBA Finals. You are not. Try something different. Look at what's worked against them. Yeah. You've got to do something. If Malone doesn't try it, I'm telling you, if you can't coach offense, you're not a good head coach. I agree 100% with Chuck. Mm-hmm. If they continue to play the way they've been playing, and the style that they've been playing throughout the bubble and in this and the Utah series and in this series, they're gonna get swept. But if you can, because you're literally relying on other guys to hit a lot of shots, not just a couple, a lot, and that's impossible. You can expect them to hit a couple of shots, sure, but to hit consistently and raining threes, you can't do that. You have to get in transition, get a couple easy buckets. That's how you get easy buckets against the Clippers. I'm telling you, they're not a great transition defensive team. They are an amazing, the best half-court defensive team. They are not a great transition defensive team. Get them running. You know who's going to do that? LeBron James. And LeBron's going to kill them.
Well, you know what part of getting them running is involved in, though, right? For the Nuggets to play that pace, you have to get stops. So, I mean, if you can get stops, you're getting rebounds, you're getting out in transition. Yeah. That's what you have to do. So, first, it comes back to the defensive end. They have to be able to get a stop. If you're allowing Kawhi,
they got some stops though too. It's not like.
But that's what I'm saying though. To get to how you want to play, and I totally. I mean, at this point, I'm game for anything because you're gonna lose the series anyway. So why not?
Exactly.
Why not try and figure out a different way? Maybe you win a couple doing it a different way. But this is where Malone's argument will win out. Well, for us to do that, we got to get a stop, because if we can't get a stop and they're scoring down every time. Well, now we're going down there and facing their half-court defense every time, and that's not what you want to do. So, yes, I agree. The pace should be sped up a little bit, but at the same time, and maybe this needs to be, maybe we need to take out Paul Millsap, and maybe you need to input Monte Morris back into the starting lineup. You know?
Yeah, I would go with that, but then you're putting Gary at the 3.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you have Gary, you have Jeremy still out on the floor, which is what they still had and you're taking out Paul Millsap, and you're allowing, now you have on Pat Bev, now it's Monte, maybe on Paul you put Jamal, or no, you put Jeremy or Gary. I don't know who Jamal would be guarding at that point. You
would put Kawhi, Jamal on the 4. Paul, so whoever's starting at the 4.
I think it's Morris.
Okay, you put Jamal on Morris, which might kill you, but I mean,
right. But I mean, if that gets the ball out of Kawhi's hand,
and that group can switch,
and there you go. So I mean, maybe that's how. Yeah. Does that get you stops better than with Paul? Maybe not.
And that
on paper,
they can run a little bit better too.
And there you go. So, but again, it's always going to come back to, if you want to get out in transition, you got to get stops first. And they're
but you also have that mentality of, okay, we're gonna run this game. Is Malone gonna let them do that? Is Malone gonna push them to do that?
Because you know what, it's more so Malone holding them back. I just think it starts on the defensive end, and I think that's why he preaches defense so much. I think he wants to get up and play with pace, but
not like that. Not the type of pace I'm talking about. I'm talking about, and
well,
Kent
you're talking 2013 Nuggets pace.
I'm talking George Karl pace.
Right. Well, they're not going to do that. One, they don't have the
Why
team.
not?
Well, they don't have the team.
What do you mean they don't have the team to do that?
They don't have the personnel for that. They don't have a
They
don't have Iguodala. They don't have guys that can get out and horses in transition. They don't have Ty Lawson.
They can get in transition.
Yes, they can, but they don't have guys like that.
Maybe not exactly like that, but what I'm saying though is you gotta. The game was so slow last night. They played exactly how the Clippers want to play. You gotta, even if they score, we've seen plenty of times where a team will score, Jokic will take the ball, immediately pass it down, and they're running.
Sure, but you're still playing against their defense, though.
What I'm saying is speed them up. No, instead of getting the ball to Jokic at the 3-point line and letting him stand out there for 5 seconds, waiting for someone to cut. How about let's just change the pace. You can't just fall into their trap. I know that's how you want to play. That's how the Nuggets actually want to play, is in a half-court offense with Jokic. But that's exactly what the Clippers want to do, and they're better than that. They're better at it than you.
Well, and the Nuggets' 2 best players, though, their best skill set is in the half court. Jamal. I mean, even though he can get out in transition, he can finish tough baskets at the rim. I mean, his best skill set is isolation, it's shot creating, and it's knocking down shots.
When I get that, but
you're in the half court.
But he can hit shots in the transition and he can finish. So sure. You can, the one concern I have is Jokic, because Jokic is gonna get drained. So that's the only thing, is Jokic really does kind of slow you down in that sense, because he can do it because of his passing ability, he can get up ahead, and then he can hit a trailing 3. So I think that can work. But I'm just worried that he's going to get tired quicker. So then you need to figure something out, but I want to see Bol play, because I think he is a perfect matchup for the Clippers.
Why not? Like I said, put him in. They were playing that way in the seeding games. Bol Bol was in. They were playing a zone.
And here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. The game against the Clippers in the seeding game. So Porter was 4 of 10, was 0 for 4 from 3. He did not play well because they have guys that can guard Porter. So and Jamal Murray 3 of 8, 2 of 7 from 3, 10 points, 6 assists. They have guys that can guard Jamal Murray. Nikola Jokic 7 of 11, 17 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds through 3 quarters. Jeremy Grant 9 of 14, 4 of 7 from 3. He had 25 points, 6 rebounds. Those are 2 guys that need to play really well. Bol Bol had 10 minutes. He was 3 of 4, 1 for 2 from 3, 7 points, and a block. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Give him 10 minutes. Give him that. Let's see. I think Plumlee has actually a decently good matchup. And Kemp said it. What if you put Bol Bol in there, make sure it's with Plumlee. He can kind of cover him a little bit. It's what you do with Porter. I'm telling you, give less minutes to Porter because it's a bad matchup for him. But those guys, and Torrey also has a decently good matchup offensively too, I feel like. Because he can sit in the corner. In that game, he was 4 of 8, 2 of 4 from 3, 10 points, 5 rebounds. Torrey Craig is a sneaky good matchup against the Clippers. So, what we always talk about with playoffs, it's all about matchups, right? Different players play better in different series. Jamal played better against Utah because of the way they played him, right? Nikola Jokic couldn't do as much as what you wanted him to do. Why? Because they have a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year guy on him, right? Okay, flip to the Clippers. Well, they don't have that. They have, are you kidding me, Zubac? Really? You're going to let Zubac bully you, Jokic? And if they double you, if they double you, though, he had 13 assists in that game against the Clippers. Through 3 quarters. 3 quarters, he had 13 assists. Why? Because the pace was up in that game specifically because they had they through, well, I don't know, but as a team they only hit 13 threes.
What was their percentage though?
37%, not very good.
Well, I mean, it's better than 24.
Well, what I'm saying is they don't need insane 3-point shooting to beat the Clippers.
No, but they need guys to hit shots, and that's what they did that game. That's why.
Right, but here's the thing though, with that game, I think the pace was a little bit up, a little bit quicker for them, and you had more movement because Jokic had 13 assists, but it wasn't all to Cutters at those 13 assists. It was because he was getting doubled, right? And other guys were hitting shots. So, but again, the pace needs to be up, and you need guys in the game that can hit shots. Obviously, Jeremy Grant is going to play. Jamal Murray is going to play. Torrey Craig hit some shots in that game. Even Porter was at least 4 of 10. It's better than what he's been giving you. But Bol Bol, again, 3 of 4, 1 of 2 from 3. Dozier was 3 of 10, not the greatest. Monte was 2 for 6, 2 for 3 from 3. So you need those guys to play a little bit better. But all I'm saying is go back and look at that game. Denver through 3 quarters had, I'm going to try and do quick math here, 58. They had 88 points through 3 quarters. That's what I'm saying. You gotta up the pace against the Clippers. You have to, because they're not a very good transition defensive team. And it worked.
It comes down to getting stops. You can't up the pace if you can't get stops. I mean, you can run fast up the court, but is that really changing the pace? Because you're just running fast to go meet their...
And by the way, Morris isn't going to hit 7 of 10, 4 of 5 from 3 every game. In that game, he was 3 of 10, 1 for 7.
If it's not going to be him, though, it's going to be Lou Williams.
And also,
really good on last night.
And also, Kawhi isn't going to go 14 of 16 every game. That's absurd.
Well, you went 12 of 16.
Or 12 of 16, sorry.
Well, he might.
Well, a lot of those, credit to him for hitting those shots, but Torrey Craig played good defense. Jeremy Grant played good defense. They were up on him. It's not like he
only had 4 baskets that were by the restricted area or close.
Right. They played him actually really well. In that game against Denver in the seeding games, he was 9 of 16. I'll take that. And he was 1 for 4 from 3. I think that's more of what we're going to get from Kawhi. I don't think we're going to get 12 of... Not every game. He might have a couple of those games, but not every game. Morris isn't going to go 7 of 12, 4 of 5 from 3 every game. Lou Williams might kill you in this game. He had 8 of 13. He was 8 of 13, 2 of 6 from 3.
Lemon Pepper Williams.
Yeah, he had 23.7 assists. So Lou Williams might kill you in a couple of games. You got to make sure that he doesn't. I don't think Beverly's going to hit 2 threes every game either. So there's just other things, other factors that aren't going to happen every game. So Denver has a chance to win a couple of games. They have a chance to force it to 7. They really do.
No, I don't think so.
Are they better than Dallas?
No. No.
Really? Because I think they are.
Are they a better team than Dallas?
Yes.
Well, the head-to-head record would say no because the Nuggets are.
Well, that's a bad matchup. But what I'm saying is, are they a better overall team? Just on paper and how even they played against Utah too. Those last 4 games.
A coin flip, but I would lean more towards Dallas. I think Dallas is more of a worse matchup for the Clippers than the Nuggets are, because what does Dallas have? They have their best player.
But what I'm saying though is I think the Nuggets have better players all around. And I think Denver is a better defensive team.
I'll give you that. They're a better defensive team, even though they're not a good defensive team. They're better. They have guys that can play better defense. But what the Mavericks have is better shot makers. I mean, they go 5 out, and everybody on their team can make shots. And honestly, Kawhi, PG, they didn't phase Luka. So their best player was able to still get his on those guys.
But what I'm saying though is the reason why you don't have shot makers is out there is because you're letting Paul Millsap play 23 minutes. You're letting Mason Plumlee play 19 minutes. You're letting
They don't have a lot of shot makers though.
Well, Bol can hit shots. Troy Daniels can hit shots. That's all I'm saying is I'm saying switch them out. Play more of your shot makers.
I'm fine with it.
Take some of your defense out.
I'm fine with it. Listen, we're gonna lose this series anyway. Let's make it fun. Let's make it interesting. All right. I don't want to get swept. Give me a tough gentleman sweep if possible. If that's what we can do, then I'll take it. But at the end of the day, I just think it's gonna be tough for the Nuggets to do that. If they want to up the pace, they still got to get stops defensively. Before we go, though, I see this comment from Kemp. Real question: over under 15 points per game for Paul George. Continues. I'm gonna go over. Brandon's probably gonna go under because he's a hater.
I'm gonna no.
He's on the
He's gonna give you he's gonna give you who he really is, and that's what did he do in this game? That's who he is.
16, didn't he?
Okay.
8.
He's gonna give you anywhere from 14 to 20. And your 5 rebounds, your couple of assists. Okay, so right, so he's gonna give you 14 to 20 a game. He might have 1 or 2 Paul George games where he goes for 25, maybe 2, probably just 1. That's what he's gonna give you. He's gonna give you exactly that. That is Paul George. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying that's who he is. It's not like he's gonna give you 25 a night. He's gonna give you 14 to 20. Anywhere between 40 to 50% shooting.
Give you 7 to 10 night. Shoot 7 for 31. I'm telling you, every time I watch Chris Middleton,
look at what Chris Middleton has been playing better than Giannis.
That's debatable.
No.
Every game I watch of the Bucks,
then you haven't been watching them against the Heat.
Every game. That's what they announce. Every game. And every time I watch this guy, clang, brick, and I'm like, dude, you're a scorer? Because every time I watch you play, you just hit the side of the rim.
Game 2, they lost by 2. Middleton, 23 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 6 of 15 shooting.
How many shots did you take him to get to 20?
15.
Oh, that's terrible. He took 15 shots to get to 23 points?
Okay, Paul George took how many shots?
He's in a tough time right now. All right,
they're the same. They're the same players. Stop it. They're the same player. They do the same. They do the. Look at their numbers. It's the same thing.
Who'd you rather have?
Game one against the Heat. Game one against the Heat. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 12 of 24 shooting.
I'm not doing this with you.
He's the same exact player.
Completely. Who would you rather have?
Both. I'll take
You
I'll take
can't
either one. Well, give me either one. I don't care. They're the same guy.
Stop. You know you'd rather have Paul George. Your life is on the line. You need a bucket. Who are you going with?
I don't care. They're the same guy.
Well, if Chris Middleton is your choice, you're dying.
Hey, you know what? You know what? Against the Heat in the second round, he's had back-to-back 28, 6 and 5, and
how many shots did it take? It took him 15 shots?
How many shots did it take for Paul George to get 19 points?
Oh, okay, that's fair. But I'm telling you, Middleton is not good. I'm not gonna say not good. He's not
the
Paul
same.
George.
He's the same exact player, and the numbers are proving it. It's inconsistent. It's like they're just as inconsistent as Jamal Murray.
See what you did, Kemp? See what you did? See what you did? You started this. This is an argument. I will go to my grave with Paul George.
The numbers literally prove my side. The numbers are literally on my side.
Is Chris a subscriber to your channel or something? Like, why do you love him so much? I don't understand that.
I don't. I'm just saying that they're the same. I don't get why everyone loves Paul George so much.
He's a great player.
He's a solid all-star guy. Just like Middleton. Solid all-star guy.
One guy's made like 7 all-star teams. The other guy's made like 2.
One guy's been playing more seasons than the other.
Chris Middleton's like 27, 28.
And Paul George is like 30.
Oh, God. I'm going to look this up before we go. Chris Middleton. He's 29.
Okay, how old is Paul George?
I almost put George Paul. Paul George. All right, here we go. Paul George, 30. Boom.
Okay.
There you go. So one guy's had
one
6-time NBA All-Star, 5-time All-NBA team selection, 4-time member of the All-NBA defensive team.
Also, a lot of that was in the East.
Oh, Middleton's in the East.
Look at their numbers. Look at their career numbers. What Paul George has had one great season. That was last year. The rest of his seasons, he's averaged 20 or 8 between 20 and 23. Look at Middleton when he was playing and when he was starting. The same exact numbers.
Middleton's had 2 NBA All-Star games, no All-NBA teams, no first, no All.
Paul George was a focal point of a team. Middleton wasn't.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Because he had Giannis. Who did Paul George have? He had to literally join Kawhi to get that guy. They're the same player.
To the playoffs, if he was the main guy, you don't believe that.
You cut out. Sorry.
You believe Chris Middleton, if he was the main guy, would lead his team to the playoffs?
In the East, in that time, they would have made the playoffs. Yes. If you swap Middleton with Paul George, yes.
No,
that Indiana team was a good team. They had good players around that team. They make the playoffs, yes.
You're loco. You are loco.
They make the playoffs. Stop it. They make the playoffs.
Chris Middleton would lead his team.
What did Paul George average? As the number 1 player, what did Paul George average?
Look.
21, 23, 20, 22.
Chris Middleton's stats. I gotta go back to George Paul.
George Paul.
In Indiana,
yes.
His best year in Indiana, he averaged 24 a game.
Okay.
He had 2 seasons back-to-back. It was 23-24. He averaged 8 games a year before that because that's when he broke his leg, so he played the last 6 games of the season. Before that, he was at 22 points per game.
Okay.
So each year he got better. He averaged 22 in 2017-18, but that was with OKC, so at that point he was on Russ's team. And then he averaged 28 the second year in OKC. And then this year he averaged 22. Stop disrespecting Paul George, man.
They're the same player.
They're not.
They're the same player.
They're not. Paul George, as the best player on his team in the East, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. Or
Chris Middleton, with his teammate averaging 30-plus a game, has put up 20, 18, and 21.
Chris Middleton is not as good as you think. If he was the main
guy, with Giannis, he was averaging 20, 18, and 21. If he was the main guy, he'd easily average 22, 23, 24.
You put Middleton on Orlando. Is Orlando a playoff team? with Middleton?
They were already a playoff team, so yes.
Okay, that's bad. That's bad.
what do you?
Put him on. Who's a bad East team?
Indiana wasn't a bad team at that time, though. Look at that team. Even Roy Hibbert was good at that time.
Okay, well, let's put him on Orlando then. Okay, they're still a playoff team because they have just great players, and Middleton would weigh them down and they'd carry him. But would Middleton take them to where Paul George?
You know what? Which was what, a 3-4 seed?
Top 3 seed Eastern Conference Finals.
I would say they're tough. I would say they could get to 4. I don't know where Paul George. I don't know what seeds Indiana was at that time. But you know what? If you're Orlando, that's exactly the type of player you need is Middleton.
No, this is exactly the player you don't want. Don't do
at
that.
least not to win a championship, but they need a whole lot more to win a championship. But like even Giannis wouldn't be enough. But what I'm saying though is a guy who can play at the 3, who can give you 20 to 24 a night. And give you and the thing about Middleton, just like Paul George, they're great all around guys. They can play defense, they can rebound the ball extremely well. Middleton's averaged over 6 rebounds a game for the last 2 years. He's been 5, 6, and 6, and he's a good passer. He gets over 4 assists a game. So, yeah, he wasn't a starter right away either. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes early on. So.
He's not as good as you think. I'm not saying Middleton is bad. He's good.
And I'm not saying Paul George is bad either.
Well,
they're the same guy.
Paul George is a lower end star, and Chris Middleton is one of those players that just happens to sprinkle in an All-Star game here and there. What's the difference?
He's made 2 in a row.
Yeah. Will he make it next year? Probably not.
Probably. Especially, yeah, he will. In the East, yes.
All-Star team?
In the East, yes. Paul George in the East was making All-Star games with 18 points a game.
In the West, Paul George is still making All-Star teams in the West.
Well, sure. Well, last year did Paul George make the All-Star team this year?
I'm pretty sure he was a reserve. I think
he barely got in. Last year he definitely made it because obviously he had a great year. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know the context. If he's averaging 21, 6, and 5, yes. Because that's what his number. 21 a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists a game, a steal per game. He shot 50% from the field and 41 from 3. He's an all-star. If those numbers, that's all-star numbers.
I really hope Middleton leaves Milwaukee and becomes the man. Somebody pays him to be the man, and you can just see that
he's going to do exactly what Paul George did. First, second round exit. Congrats. Good job, Paul George.
God, you're so disrespectful. Is what you are.
I'm telling you what he did. First, second round exit. Boom, done.
You're so disrespectful.
20 to 24 a game.
I don't understand.
First, second round exit in the East. Done.
The same player. They're not even close to the same player. You know what? If Paul George is Heinz ketchup and Chris Middleton is great value ketchup. They're still ketchup, but one is still better than the other. Okay? So I'll give you that. Yeah, they're still ketchup, but one is the better version. How about this? I'll give you this. Chris Middleton is the poor man's version of Paul George.
No,
is that fair?
He's not.
That's fair. That's fair.
No.
We'll end up.
No.
Kemp, stop stoking
They're the same guy.
That's gonna do it for us today on the Behind the Glass Sports.
Paul George was not on the 2020 NBA All-Star team.
Through a dark place, things are tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pandemic.
Sure.
All that stuff.
Sure.
Adjusted to a new. Plus, he was hurt all year. That's why.
Sure.
That's why. In the East, they're thinking about picking from the local JV teams at high schools to fill their All-Star teams.
I don't get all the love for Paul George. I don't get it.
Because he's a great player.
He's a good player, just like Middleton.
He's a great player.
All these guys are great players.
Not Chris Middleton. So that's just the facts at this point.
Hey, you know what? Chris Middleton is showing up in the playoffs more than Paul George is.
Yeah, and his team is down 0-2. What is Paul George's team? Up 1-0. So.
Well, is Denver better than Miami?
No.
Okay. Well, there you go. Is Milwaukee better than the Clippers overall? Oh, okay. There's your answer.
But one guy's
One guy has Kawhi, Harrell, Lou Will, Pat Bev,
Oh, no.
all these guys, and the other guy is a
Giannis
great player in Giannis, but Giannis can't shoot. What have we talked about Giannis? He can't get to the NBA Finals. Why? He can't shoot. He can't create his own shot. All he can do is dunk. The perfect matchup for them is the Heat. It works.
I think Giannis is overrated.
I do too. I do too.
Said it.
Giannis is
I like him.
Yeah. Until he gets a shot, he's overrated. He
Great player.
You know who he is? He's a modern day Shaq.
I don't know about that.
No, he is. He's a guy who can get 30 points in the regular season, 14 to 16 rebounds a game, can't shoot worth crap.
Okay, I guess from that aspect, sure, but
He's athletic. What I'm saying is the modern version is he's athletic.
Yeah. Sure.
He's literally the modern version of Shaq.
That's gonna do it for us today on the Paul George versus Chris Middleton podcast. We thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you're on my side of this argument.
Same player.
You're on this.
Look at the stats. Same player. Watch
Great
them.
value catch.
Literally watch them play. They're the same exact player.
Go to the ketchup aisle. Do you go for the great value ketchup? Heinz ketchup. That's the question. That's what I'm gonna leave you with on this Friday, people. That's what it's gonna be. All right. For Brandon Stoll, I'm Steve Priest. Thanks to Eric Kemp for interacting with us and keeping us in check. And
Thank you
sane.
for getting us off the Nuggets.
Appreciate that. We'll be back on Tuesday to discuss probably another Nuggets loss. So until then, we'll catch you guys next time. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast.